Now, when it comes to understanding your customer's journey, knowing their touch points, it's really critical. Touch points are the places where customers connect with each other and with businesses, of course. And brands really need to be prepared to engage customers wherever they are on that journey at every possible touch point. We keep hearing about that customer experience, and do organizations get it right or do they get it wrong? Well, you as a customer can decide that for yourselves, but companies need to embrace technology to connect disparate systems and achieve a cohesive view of customer identity. And the retail space is really becoming increasingly integrated, as we can see around us, according to the National Retail Federation and, of course, Forrester's annual State of Retailing online study. Ideally, customers want to shop easily across all touchpoints, be it in person, through a website, or via an app. I'm going to be speaking to Strategic Account Manager at Infobip South Africa, Jeremy Osborne, who's going to share his insights on how businesses in the retail sector should be employing a unified customer experience. He's going to touch on how retailers can work towards delivering a unified customer experience while trying to overcome current customer engagement challenges caused by the shift to the new normal, among the other talking points. So it's a great pleasure to welcome to What's Next, Jeremy Osborne. Hello, Jeremy. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Well, it's great. It's great to have you. I'm really passionate about what we're going to be talking about, and I'm glad that we are starting season 3 with this exact topic because, customer experience is everything, and we've seen how the pandemic has shifted so much around us, and many organizations don't quite get it right. So I'm really looking forward to our chat. Now, Infobip is a global communications company, so the ideology of a unified customer experience plays a big part of what your company does. Now, can you provide us with an overview of what it means? What is a unified customer experience, or UCX, as we often hear the term UCX being bandied around? What does it all mean, Jeremy?
Yeah, brilliant. You're right. Yeah. UCX or Unified Customer Experience. This is really about how brands communicate with their customers. I think the critical point is that contextual conversations with your customers, these are really, really important because it means you're actively listening to your customers and what they want. I think the important point is not just listening, but it's when and where. These interactions, these need to happen at the customer's convenience. So when they want to communicate with you on the channels of their choice. An important point of course, of that as well is that businesses need to be able to join the customer at any point of that journey to make sure that they're delivering the services that they expect. So that's going to be over a website or any digital channel of the customer's choosing. I think that it's important that customers need to be able to recognize and interact with your brand wherever you happen to be and on whichever channel that happens to be.
So I guess that context is everything, and I think it's such an important point you raise. Now I can tell you, as a customer, I often get frustrated when organizations don't listen to me how I want to communicate when I'm trying to do something. Now we often hear about the customer touch points. Now, what exactly is a touch point? Can you give us an analysis, an explanation of what is a touch point, and how can retailers optimize customer touch points? Because I think it's very important to understand this distinction.
Yeah. No, look, you raised such an important point there, that customers need to be able to reach you, when it's convenient for them. And I think, like so many things these days, research and analysis ongoing is really, really key. You need to make sure that a retailer needs to be able to make sure that they can identify customer issues or opportunities on one channel before they become present on another channel. The very best unified customer experience is always going to be based on kind of constant analysis of customer needs, making sure that there's a proactive as opposed to a reactive approach to problem solving. As for touch points themselves, touch points are really crucial elements to focus on for a unified customer experience. These touch points intersect with three main phases of the customer lifecycle. So your awareness, your evaluation, your post-purchase stages, and I think having a solid understanding of a customer's journey allows a business now to determine and understand what are all the right touch points across all of these phases that myself as a brand should be present on, to make sure that I'm available there for the customer, to make sure that I can then deliver a great kind of customer experience, but importantly also to manage their expectations. As you've indicated, you need to make sure that customers' expectations, which are changing all the time based on the time of the day or the channel they're using, those need to be addressed. You need to be available to make sure that you're doing that. So I think it's really important for the retail industry to understand the impact that these touch points have on the customer experience. You need to make sure that you know what these touch points are, which ones are relevant, on which stage, with before, during, or after, and making sure that then you're using the right channels then to kind of deliver this omni-channel approach, whatever the channel may be. And I think that's a blessing that we have these days, that there are so many channels available, whether it's WhatsApp or chatbots or Instagram. In fact, any digital platform or channel that your customers engage on is where you need to be.
Jeremy, just repeat those three touch points that you said earlier, because I want to memorize them so that I can, whenever I talk to retailers, these are the three things that you guys need to be on the lookout for.
Yes, indeed. So look, the 3 points are, I think what I'm saying is that these touch points intersect with the three main phases kind of your
Yes.
customer life cycle. So the awareness stage, the evaluation stage, and the post-purchase stage. Because the important thing is, I may start a retail or consumer experience with you on one channel. I may be investigating on the service or learning more about it, but I may be purchasing or engaging with your brand on a different channel. And then when it comes to post-purchase or support, I could then still use a different channel still. But as a user, I don't want to have a different experience. I want to engage with the same brand, with the same experience, whatever they may be. So that's where the
Yeah.
touch points become very, very important.
And Jeremy, it's so interesting that you mentioned this, because it's amazing how many organizations get that post-purchase touch point completely wrong, right? And then it really goes horribly wrong, because you can actually lose a customer if you get just that last part. So you've got to look at every single stage of that particular journey. They're equally important. Now, since the
Yeah.
pandemic, Jeremy, I mean, the retail industry has had to adapt dramatically to what we know now as the new normal, right? And now, in light of this, what sort of customer engagement challenges is the retail industry currently facing, and how can the industry strive to overcome these kind of challenges? Because I guess many things have changed with the pandemic, and some retailers have adapted, some haven't adapted fast enough.
Yeah, look, absolutely right. Well, the COVID pandemic in many ways is almost like a perfect storm in a way. It's created these challenges that the retail industry has had to kind of overcome um, just to survive. I mean, and I guess what makes it so interesting is that it's happened everywhere at the same time. So really compelling an industry to now adapt or face the consequences of not being able to do that. And I think coming with that, it means now suddenly we have these always on customers with extremely high expectations. And that's understandable because, we provide services to collectively as businesses, but we're also all consumers and we're all in the same boat at the same time. People are forced to operate remotely now, which means customers now have schedules that are frenetic compared to what they are before. So we have this demand for almost unlimited online resources all the time. I think the important point is that as consumers now, we expect convenience and reliability, and that these need to relate and address our needs and expectations all the time, whether it's online or in store. They remain the same. So I think retailers really need to be highly responsive to these customer expectations. They need to make sure that they're matching their products and services to these rapidly evolving customer preferences. It's really about keeping up with the latest shopping trends and consumer buying behavior which just as we thought we're getting a fix on it, they're evolving almost in real time. So we need to, as retailers, be there at the same time for our customers.
It's so interesting you talk about this, and I was just thinking now that we've most people have dabbled in some sort of online retail and e-commerce experience pre-pandemic, right? And what you've seen now happening is that so many of those traditional bricks and mortar organizations have really aggressively gone to that e-commerce experience. And I'm looking at, you talk about the competitiveness out there. If you just look at food shopping, for example, going into a supermarket, yes, many of the retailers were dabbling in e-commerce so that you could buy your stuff before, but now it's become so competitive, and deliveries within an hour, and it's all about that customer experience, getting the products to the customer as quickly as possible, and everybody's had to adapt and evolve and really meet the customer's demands. So you just need one competitor, for example, to trigger off that chain reaction, and everybody has to follow and keep that level of service, that high standard level of service, pretty high across the board. I mean, you must be seeing some very interesting things happening in the retailer space when it comes to groceries and food shopping.
Absolutely. Because you touched on something so important there. It's almost like, collectively as a market, people are becoming more in tune with using online services. They're almost becoming hygiene factors. And what you touched on is so important, is that, the experience I have with a brand is now becoming the driving factor, because I just, my life as a consumer, it's really, really busy. I need brands that make it easy for me to kind of live my life and to kind of engage on all these new dimensions that weren't there before. So brands getting that service element right is just such a powerful kind of tool, because it's, I guess, the one almost cruel part about it is that getting it right makes it seamless. It's when something, even the smallest thing, is missing, that makes it such a jarring experience for the consumer. And as you pointed out, it's like that magical moment where if this golden thread is cut, suddenly the experience is a shock to what you're expecting. And you're right, having brands develop a strong kind of omni-channel approach that says, hold on, I'm holding your hand, so to speak, and making your experience smooth throughout whatever the channel may be. Man, that really reaps so many benefits for brands.
I mean, could you provide an overview of that cross-channel orchestration that we're talking about, and how this is having an impact on customer experience? We touched on some of the points right now, but can you touch on the powerful analytics, for example, that retailers can employ? Because ultimately, the data and the analytics, if used properly, you can use them to a massive advantage in your organization to improve all of these experiences. And I'm not so sure if everybody's using analytics effectively today.
Spot on. This kind of cross-channel orchestration, that really refers to the ability of retailers being able to reach their customers where they already are. Because in most cases, customers are already using the digital channels in their daily lives. They're waiting for the brands to join them. So,
Right.
the expectation is just waiting there. And I think it's the important point then, of course, is that the transparency in this cross-channel orchestration really goes far beyond simply integrating channels and stuff into your back-end processes. The most important thing for brand is to make sure that what is the experience I'm crafting? What am I designing? What's the outcome that I'm aiming for? Keep that in mind, and then say, right, what are the channels that are going to support that? Because my customers are going to decide for me which channels they prefer, when and where. And you touched on something so interesting there when it comes to the analysis, because how customers use your channels tells you so much. Your customers are telling you all the time, either actively by giving you feedback, real-time feedback, or just by their behaviors themselves, the way they're using your platforms, the way they're using the channels that you've provided. And when I say using channels, I mean, to give an example, customers very often will design an experience with an outcome in mind. You're thinking, right, great, this is how customers are going to use it. Your customers will show you how they're going to use it. So I think you need to make sure that you're responsive. You need to be able to to integrate or kind of listen to the information that you're getting from them to make sure that, hold on, are they using it the way I think they can be using it? What are they doing? What are they not doing? Where does the process change? At what points are they asking for things that I didn't anticipate or that I have anticipated? When and where are they looking for live support? When do they need kind of automated services to facilitate their lives? I think that's where making sure that you're collecting all of this data, because there is so much of it, and just getting all the learnings out of it. So really, it's making sure that to create this optimal customer experience, you're tracking, you're measuring, and you're analyzing everything. And luckily, being in the digital space, that's where so many of the technologies available these days make all of that possible, whether it's SMS, rich communication suites, push notifications, email, whatever it may be. They all give you the ability to see in real time how your customers are interacting with you, and if you need to adjust or do anything in a real-time basis or plan for developments in the future.
It sounds like that retailers are using and listening to their customers and what the customers want to kind of mold the experience around their specific store. And I guess a lot of people are learning as to what the customers want and tweaking here and there and improving things as they go along. So really, these experiences are being molded by what the customers ultimately want. Can you please share, having said that, with that backdrop, the kind of best practices and trends in the retail industry and how they have had to change or adapt their specific strategies? Because I guess when we think of COVID, things were different pre-COVID as they are post-COVID, or during COVID, should we say? And customers have got different demands. Is there an example? Is there a distinction? What are you seeing? What are the trends out there?
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, when the pandemic, I think, has changed retail customer behavior, or the retail customer experience. It's changed it almost forever in South Africa. It's really created a situation where customers and brands are now compelled to kind of engage. There's many CTO digitalization strategies that have been sitting on the shelf waiting for that. That implementation is always just 1 year away. Well, this arrived, and now everything has to be done immediately. The market's not going to wait. So whoever meets that demand first kind of reaps the benefits. But certainly, restrictions on face-to-face activities has really compelled businesses now to pivot to kind of the digital solutions. And I think to be able to kind of firstly serve your customers and delight them, these brands need to be able to move quickly to stay in line with these customer demands. We've seen from our side that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Even starting with these small approaches to move into the digital space, opening up these channels, even small moves reap really big benefits. Because that's what's so nice about digital, is that when you open up a channel and make it available to your market, the response is almost immediate. And you learn from it instantly because your customers are already there. They're becoming far more familiar with the channels. They're becoming far more comfortable with using them. And I think for many people using online services or purchases for the first time, it's almost like suddenly the penny drops and people go, hold on, this is actually really cool. It's actually quite convenient. It's way more convenient than I expected. Important elements like digital security are improving all the time, allowing people to feel more secure about what they're doing. And also online payments. You think about how much is available out there, and it's growing all the time. So it's just becoming more and more convenient for people to engage. So I think all of these changes collectively means that the retail industry has had to adapt and is in the middle of adapting to these changes all the time. And that's where things like, with so many channels available, email, chatbots, Instagram, text, WhatsApp, Telegram, whatever the service may be, it allows you to deliver something to all of your customers all the time. And I think we've certainly seen it from our side, is that once brands kind of take the plunge and they're suddenly seeing the benefits, man, there's no turning back.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. Jeremy, when you look at South Africa in the customer experience space and with what we've been talking about, how do we compare with the rest of the world? And I know that the omni-channel environment and retail environment and the online experience is a little bit more mature abroad, and we've had a really fast learning curve during the pandemic. How do we compare as we stand right now to the rest of the world here in South Africa?
Look, I'd say very well, because certainly from an organization like ourselves, where we have experience across the globe, I must also just say that once again, each market has its own unique isms, if you get my meaning, that are really particular to each environment. And in many ways, we really are on par, but also in many ways, there's just so much opportunity. There's such an enormous upside to delivering more and more of these services to our customers. And arguably as well, in some cases, because we have got such unmet demand in our country, it also creates a very, very rich environment for, I mean, amazing innovation in our space. And it's, as you've seen, innovation is just always kind of responds best to when there's growing or strong lead in the market. So I think we're doing really, really very well, because in many ways we're using services that the rest of the world is using. We're all using the same things. It's just a
Exactly.
matter of localizing to each specific kind of demand. So we're in a fantastic space, I think. In fact, I mean, an upcoming webinar later this month, where we're actually going to be talking about exactly that, about just kind of the key strategies for customers to be using to kind of adapt their digital strategies to their local demands. So, yeah, in summary, I think South Africa is in a great space.
Oh, that's so exciting, and I'm glad you touched on the technology, because really, technology has been democratized. So everyone has access to the same kind of platforms to build your online store, and I guess it comes down at the end of the day to logistics, getting the products to your customer. And we seem to be doing pretty well when you look at the increase of the logistics companies, and I must say the experiences that I've had with most logistics companies getting the end part of the transaction to me as a customer has been pretty good. So clearly they're deploying those technologies as well. So I'm glad to hear we're on the right path when it comes to these customer experiences. But I think that we can always improve and always look at the bigger picture, listening to what the customers want, and ultimately really delivering a superb experience for the customers to come back to you. Jeremy Osborne, the strategic account manager at Infobip, we thank you so much for joining us on this episode.
Thank you so much, Aki. It was a pleasure to be part of this.